In this video, we're going to learn a bit more about how to solve equations algebraically, and we're going to deal with a lot more complex equations, including those with fractions. And it's important to know what inverse operations are. So another word for inverse is opposite, and our four main operations are plus, minus, multiplication, and division. The opposite of addition is subtraction. The opposite of subtraction is addition. The opposite of multiplication is division, and the opposite of division is multiplication. And you'll see why these are important in our examples from this video. So this is one of the slides that we went through last lesson, and this was how we solve one-step equations. So if we have plus, we use subtraction to get the pronumeral on its own. If we have subtraction, we use addition to get the pronumeral on its own. If we have multiplication, we do the opposite, and same with division. So that is what we did in green. In yellow, we basically just substituted the value that we found into the original equation just to see if it all makes sense and if it all works out to be true. So now that we're going to be solving equations algebraically, we've got to think about again which way the equation was made, and only then will we be able to do it in reverse, so that way we can find or solve what the pronumeral is. So let's think about an equation. Let's make a number x. Let's multiply it by 3, and then let's divide that by 10. So we're going downwards. So let's just give it an equal sign and let's put any number there. So let's say 3x equals 10. So to work our way back upwards, we need to do the reverse steps, so using inverse operations. So the opposite of dividing by 10 is to multiply by 10. And we always do this to both sides. So multiplied by 10. And that gives us exactly that. Okay, and then we can say that, yep, there's a 10 on top and a 10 on the bottom, so we're going to cancel them out. We're going to be left with 3x equals 60. And now we've got multiplication that we have to deal with. So we've ticked this part off, and now we need to work on what's the inverse or the opposite of multiplication, and that is to divide by 3, division. Okay, so I'm going to divide both sides by 3. And that should give me exactly that. Again, cancelling top and bottom, 3 in the top, 3 in the bottom, that cancels out, and I'm left with x on its own now, which should equal 20. Okay, now we want to do a different example. So let's take a number x, add 3, and then divide by 10. So we're not dividing just x or just 3, we're dividing everything. Okay, so we're dividing x plus 3 by 10. Okay, and that means we can make our own equation. Let's say it equals 6. So if we divided everything by 10 over here, we're now going to multiply everything by 10 on both sides. So that means by 10 by 10. So that means 10 times all of this. Okay, and if a 10's on top and a 10's on the bottom, it cancels out. And we're left with x plus 3 equals 60. And now all we need to do is worry about taking care of the addition. So now we want to focus on how do we remove the adding of 3, and that's by doing the opposite, which is to subtract 3. And by subtracting 3, we end up getting x plus 3 take away 3, and 60 take away 3. And if you add 3 and then take away 3, you basically get 0. So we're just left with x on its own equals 57. And finally, our last example, which is probably our most difficult. Let's start with the letter x, multiply it with 2, add 11, which is 2x plus 11, and then divide that whole thing by 3. So let's just say it equals 5.
and let's start working back to get x on its own. So to divide the whole thing by 3, the opposite of that is to multiply the whole thing by 3. So we want to multiply the left and the right by 3. Okay, and that should give us that. Now if we say 3 times 2x plus 11, put a 3 on the bottom and a 3 on the top, and that cancels out, which gives us 2x plus 11 equals 5 times 3, which is 15. And now we can focus on the next step. So we've done this one, and let's say, what is the opposite of adding 11? The opposite of adding 11 is to subtract 11. So we should subtract 11 from both sides. And that gives us 2x plus 11 take away 11, which we know is like saying 0, or 11 take away 11 is 0, so that cancels out. And we're left with 2x equals 4, because 15 take away 11 is 4. And now we've done this step here. Now the top step says multiply x with 2, and the opposite of doing that is to divide by 2. So we want to divide both sides by 2. And that will give us 2x on 2 equals 4 on 2. We have a 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom, and x equals 2.